Welcome to episode 34 of the Security Matters podcast, where we bring you the latest news, views and opinion from across the UK's dedicated security business sector. My name's Brian Sims and I'm the editor of Security Matters magazine. We're delighted that this podcast is sponsored by the Security event, which runs at the NEC in Birmingham from the 8th to the 10th of April 2025. Security Matters is once again serving as the lead media partner for the exhibition. To register for the show, visit www.thesecurityevent.co.uk. Turning to the news now, and in one of the biggest legislation updates to policing for decades, a package of new laws brought forward by the government will tackle antisocial behaviour, shop theft and street crime. The Crime and Policing Bill, which is central to the government's plan for change and safer streets mission, has been introduced in Parliament and begins its journey to becoming law. The government is including measures to address the highest harm crimes impacting society, such as knife crime, violence against women and girls, cybercrime and terrorism. The police service will be given enhanced powers against the theft of mobile phones and no longer need a warrant to search properties where stolen items have been electronically geolocated. Under the new warrantless powers of entry, officers will be able to enter premises identified by electronic mapping if stolen items are believed to be there and it's not practicable to obtain a warrant from a court. This can be done through Find My Phone app, Wi-Fi access points, Bluetooth, mobile network technology, or tracking devices attached to any other possession or vehicle. This will support the police to act swiftly in the golden hour of investigations, which is particularly crucial for investigations into theft, helping to provide swifter seizures of stolen property and providing a better service for victims. Sitting at the very heart of the government's Safer Streets mission and plan for change, the Crime and Policing Bill will help to tackle the crimes that matter most to communities but have been ignored for far too long. The new laws will be backed up by the recruitment of 13,000 extra neighbourhood policing roles, with a named officer stationed in every community. On the introduction of the Crime and Policing Bill, Home Secretary Yvette Cooper said, "This flagship Crime and Policing Bill is at the very heart of our mission for safer streets and this government's plan for change. For too long now, communities have had to put up with rising town centre and street crime and persistent antisocial behaviour, while neighbourhood policing numbers have been cut." Cooper continued, "For years now, too little has been done to tackle the most serious violence of all, including knife crime and violence against women. That's why the new Crime and Policing Bill is about taking back our streets and town centres, restoring respect for law and order, and giving the police service and local communities the support and tools they need to tackle local crime." On the new warrantless powers of entry, Cooper stated, "For the last few years, our towns and cities have seen street theft rise as organised gangs have been targeting mobile phones. It's extremely frustrating for victims when they can see exactly where their stolen smartphone has gone, but nothing is done. This is why we're determined to give the police the powers they need to move fast to crack down on these crimes that are blighting our communities." There is a significant focus on protecting high streets. The effective immunity for shop theft of goods below £200 will be scrapped, and retail workers will be better protected from assault. There'll also be increased powers to crack down on repeat antisocial behaviour offenders, with new respect orders banning those prolific offenders from town centres. Jason Towers, Managing Director of the Business Services Division at Mighty, informed Security Matters, "Those in the industry know that retail crime is never victimless, with a shocking rise in organised crime, prolific offending and assaults on retail workers involving weapons. Too many have suffered and have been left with long-lasting scars that persist even after their injuries have healed. The introduction of the assault on a retail worker as a standalone offence is long overdue and must become a reality as soon as possible, such that we finally start to see punishments that fit the crime and drive not just safer retail environments but also safer communities in which we work and live." Towers continued, "When we think of retail workers, we often overlook the security officers who strive to safeguard colleagues and customers within stores every day. It's important that they are also included within this offence. Disturbingly, retail security officers also face injuries daily as they fulfil their duties, with a total of 968 incidents in 2024 resulting in physical harm to our security personnel alone. In today's working world, it's hard to think of another environment where this would be tolerated." Further, Towers explained, "If we are to take a zero-tolerance approach towards retail crime with a necessary justice system in place, all parts of the industry must be considered and must remain united. As the Crime and Policing Bill moves through Parliament, retailers, security businesses and law enforcement alike must maintain a collaborative approach and start to improve troubling statistics themselves by using data and technology as enablers. Valuable footage captured by security officers using body-worn cameras and the formal data sharing agreements established between retailers and the police are already starting to lead to convictions." In conclusion, Towers stated, "With harsher sentences coming into play, these tools and strategies are essential for apprehending offenders and ensuring that proof is captured such that those offenders face appropriate legal consequences." Exhibition organiser Informa plc, the publishing, business intelligence and exhibitions group based in London, has announced that Anticipate London, the event introduced at Excel in Docklands last December and which encompassed the IFSEC International and Forex International brands, in addition to Safety and Health Expo and the Facility Show, will not run again. Issuing a short statement on the event's dedicated website, Informa plc explains, "We've taken the decision to retire Anticipate. This industry is about evolving and adapting. We know that the ways in which UK professionals want to stay informed across the many topics and specialisms within security, safety, health, buildings and facilities are changing too. We're proud to have served this fantastic community over the years. Thank you to everyone who's been part of the journey." Informa plc bought UBM plc, which used to run IFSEC International from its headquarters in London's Blackfriars, back in June 2018. IFSEC International, of course, is a brand that's resonated with practitioners in the security industry for so long, having supported the global security community since its inception back in 1974. For decades, IFSEC was viewed as the place to connect face-to-face with the entire security supply chain and offered networking with international companies operating across the access control, video surveillance, perimeter protection, intruder alarms and cybersecurity domains. In a parallel move, IFSEC Insider, the Informa plc website dedicated to the integrated security and global fire safety sectors, has now ceased publishing. Formerly branded IFSEC Global and prior to that Info for Security, IFSEC Insider published news, features, white papers, video content and product information. Developments in video surveillance, access control, intruder and fire alarms and security guarding plus cybersecurity, drones, smart buildings, home automation and the Internet of Things were all part of the editorial mix. Informa plc's statement concludes, "To our valued Anticipate, IFSEC, FireX, Safety and Health Expo, Facility Show and Safety and Health practitioner customers, we would like to take a moment to thank you for being an essential part of Anticipate and its related events. You've helped us to create many memorable moments over the last 50 years, and we thank you for your continued support. While this chapter comes to a close, we look forward to continuing our work together in new and exciting ways." The premise for Anticipate London was based on the fact that, in an ever-changing world, people and property leaders are facing constant challenges that demand proactive solutions. From technology innovation through to climate change, new legislation, and also unanticipated threats, those practicing professionals must continually seek to minimise business risk, while also embracing new innovations and opportunities for progression. Anticipate London was designed to stand at the forefront of this evolutionary process, duly offering a platform wholly dedicated to smarter properties, safer occupants, and integrated and converged systems. Emerging from the legacy of IFSEC International, Forex International, Safety and Health Expo and the Facility Show, Anticipate London wasn't just about a new name. Rather, it was badged by Informa plc as a bold and unified event orchestrated to meet the evolving needs of today's business leaders, while in parallel preparing them for tomorrow's challenges. 10 years ago, IFSEC International and its co-located events were among the biggest trade shows in the UK, generating a turnover of circa £15 million. Now it appears that the brand has been consigned to the history books. Our first guest on episode 34 of the Security Matters podcast is Kieran Mackie, the Managing Director of Amulet Security, itself an award-winning security solutions provider that specialises in the transport sector. Kieran's core focus remains on fostering a people-centric culture and making a career in security an attractive proposition through training and personal development programmes. Kieran previously worked at the business for 5 years as the company's commercial director, with key responsibility for developing and implementing commercial strategy according to stated goals and objectives. During our interview, Kieran examines a number of subjects, among them crowd control monitoring, retail security, and the Worker Protection Act. Welcome to the podcast, Kieran. First of all, could you tell us all about Amulet as a business and a security brand, and outline your own role in the company?
Thank you for having me. So I think starting off with Amulet as a brand. So Amulet have been around for about 6 years now as part of the Churchill Group, and we focus on specialist security services. So our main focus is really listening to the customer and delivering a service that's bespoke to them. We see lots of contracts that have gone term after term with no real revitalisation or change, and I think it's clear to everyone that the world has changed dramatically, especially in the last 5 years. And I think security is in the same position, that, you know, it's a world that's not standing still. And as Amulet, we try and take each customer one by one and really look at what it is they want from a security partner, what it is they need from either building protection or employee or visitor protection. And ultimately, our main driver is to make safe spaces for people to live, work and enjoy. And that's pretty much the driver for us as a business. We deliver a range of services, everything from man guarding to mobile security to technical solutions. which is evolving so fast at the moment with the introduction of remote services, AI integration, integration of multiple different platforms coming together to building management systems. So that's a part of the business that continually just evolves so fast. We've sort of stopped giving any sort of brochures or anything like that out, because by the time you've pulled anything together, the tech has changed and the world's moved on. So yeah, it's quite an exciting part of the business that. Yes, that's a bit about Amulet and what we do. Yeah. I'm the managing director, so realistically, my role is to drive the strategy of the business, make sure that we're challenging ourselves internally as well as challenging customers, and just really make sure that we live to the values that we set out. We're a very values-driven business. I'm a very values-driven person, and I think it's really key that we stay that way, and we're predominantly, one of my main focuses is to really look after our employees. As much as there's a huge growth in tech, ultimately we're a people business, and our focus has to be on looking after them and doing the right thing by them, and in turn them then looking after our customers. So one of the key parts of my role is to make sure that we're constantly reviewing our reward and recognition program, our benefits, and employee and manager interaction, and how often we see and support them. And that's one of the sort of key drivers we've got.
Amulet's engagement with the B network has extended to bus services, including nighttime patrols. In what ways have travel safe enforcement officers adapted their approach towards day and night security for those bus services, Kieran?
B Network's a fantastic contract for us. I'm not sure whether you're aware that before the B Network was rebranded, they'd had a period of time without that sort of security and safeguarding element on the buses. And that's where we came in to develop the TSEO role, as it's known now, alongside the B Network. And it's really a focus on safeguarding, making Manchester's transport network safe, making sure that the people that jump on and off the buses can travel around Manchester and safely. It's a very challenging environment. The bus network is huge, as you probably know. It's a really large geographical patch for the team to cover, and they'll deal with all sorts of issues, accidents, public interaction. But there is a change in demographic out of hours. So as you say, we've recently started looking after the nighttime buses as well as the day buses. And I'm sure you can imagine that the people that jump on and off the bus during the day are very different to the evening. And the requirements for the safeguarding element change as well. So in the evenings, there are more people that are going out, that have been socialising, drinking, that probably don't have their wits about them in the same way. That just need someone to keep an eye out for and make sure that they're safe whilst travelling around. Whereas during the day, there's lots of interaction with school kids, teenagers that are moving around, and then also those that use the buses for their sole purpose of transport. It could be elderly individuals that have gone to do their shopping or meet family, that just need a helping hand every now and then. And the range of issues that the team deal with day to day make it a really challenging but rewarding environment. I think the team that we've got that work on the B Network really buy into what they do. They're really proud to work with the B Network and Amulet. They're really proud of what they do. And quite rightly so, because they do a fantastic job. So yes, it's been a really, really good contract since we've been working with them.
As Martin's Law progresses through the House of Lords committee stage, the implementation period may be set to 12 months. How might crowd control monitoring services provide an adaptable solution for increasing security measures within this timescale, and notably so for difficult to monitor locations such as busy train stations or indeed stadiums?
I think it's one of the challenges, isn't it? Event security and fluctuation in requirements has always been difficult in the industry. Obviously, we've developed what we call our command and control vehicles, and they're mobile vehicles that contain a range of technical kit that could be from CCTV cameras. We've got ones that have got AI on them for crowd control monitoring. We've got vehicle recognition. And we've got deployable towers that go with the CCTV vehicles to give greater width and visibility of an area that's not generally covered. And we've started using them more for events where our customers generally don't have the setup for the security provision, excluding bringing in extra stewards or security. So I think what it does do is it gives a focus on that events. I think with the incoming Martin's Law and having greater responsibility for the safety of the people at the events, I think giving our customers a mobile control room with a dedicated service for that event, being able to monitor crowds, crowd flow, being able to monitor incidents quickly and respond, I think it gives some of our customers peace of mind that they're doing everything they can do to make that event pass safely. So I think it's been a real positive thing. We've deployed it last year at London Marathon at some really busy areas to give us a focal point for the security team and the customer to monitor crowd movement, and it was really successful. So I think it's something that will continue to be used more and more as people get to grips as what's happening with Martin's Law coming in.
The Churchill Group, of course, has been an employee-owned trust for over 12 months now. How does this change actively impact security officers on the ground, though?
I think it's twofold, really. I think that the main focus is obviously now that we're employee-owned, the drivers of that employee focus have changed. I think it really enhances the fact that our employees are our most key asset. I think it basically solidifies what we've said for a long time, which is that we look after our employees. They're our most important asset. And that's really solidified that by us saying you're now an owner. I think it changes the mentality of people. I think they now feel more part of something. The model of being an employee-owned trust really does make people feel like they've got a bit more of a voice and gives them a bit more interaction within the business. And then obviously down the road, the financial benefits for everyone, including the frontline staff, will be fantastic when that day comes. But yeah, I think we're obviously an early adopter in the industry, and I think it's a really good way forward of really embracing the fact that we're a successful business because of what everybody does, especially the frontline staff. So yeah, it's been a positive impact, and we've had some really good feedback. We did our employee survey recently to get the voice of our employees, and it was one of the things that was raised as a really positive thing and made them feel valued and really brought them into the business in a greater way than they've had before. So I think it certainly, from a morale point of view, had a real positive impact for the frontline staff.
The consultation process for the Passenger Railway Services Public Ownership Act 2024 heralds a new and simplified model for public transport being more likely here in the UK. What impact do you feel this will have on security services across National Rail?
I think it will probably continue highlighting the importance of security. I think the greater focus on the rail network will bring with it a more transparent view of security. I think we've seen a real rise over the last few years in focus on transport security, travel safety, focusing on vulnerable people on the routes, focusing on people that are travelling that have got difficulties that need support. And I think public ownership will continue that focus, hopefully, because I think we've seen some really good results in that area. I also think it will probably give a greater focus on making sure that people's journeys are successful, because I think there's a real drive to make that public ownership model successful. And I think public perception of travel is an area that they could probably improve on. So, it sort of ties in with that. Was my journey safe? Do I feel comfortable? Was it an easy journey? And do I think it's value for money? And they're the sort of things that I think that public ownership model needs to focus on. And a big part of that is the safety of people as they travel on around the routes. And I think that starts from when they first walk into a station. You can see the difference on the train operating companies we work with, where they've got well-lit, secure, more modern stations. The general perception of safety is better than some of the other stations that are less well-lit and less occupied. And I think maybe public ownership will give a bit more focus on pulling those areas up that need an improvement. So, hopefully it's a positive thing.
Retail crime seems to be a more pressing issue now than ever before, Kieran, with incidents of customer theft rising sharply. This is coupled with the increased harassment of shop workers and violence being directed against them. How does the security industry need to respond to this situation, and do you feel that any new tactics can be introduced here?
Yes, I think this has been on the rise for a while, hasn't it? I think coming out of the back of, I dread to use the word COVID because it still feels like recent history. Coming out of the back of COVID, I think there's been a real increase in violence and verbal abuse towards not just security in retail, but even retail staff. Security companies and working together is a big part of how we can combat that. I've seen in the news this week that obviously the government are looking to remove the £200 threshold for retail crime, which I think is important because I think a bit like years ago in New York with the broken windows theory, if people know that theft under £200 just isn't going to get a conviction and no one's, for want of a better term, bothered, I think that then starts people on a journey of theft is acceptable. And I think it's the same with violence against retail staff. You know, there doesn't seem to be the right level of arrests and prosecutions, and it's become an acceptable crime. And I think there is the piece about making abuse against or violence against retail workers a specific crime as well. And I think that will help, but that will take time to flow through the system. I think things like notification of security staff of repeat offenders. I think utilising CCTV and body-worn cameras can be really powerful, but that needs to be followed up with prosecutions because if people are not prosecuted, then it becomes a crime that you can get away with and will repeat again. I also think there's an education piece. I was having a discussion last week around are we educating the younger generation about the fact that retail crime and verbal abuse is unacceptable? You know, is that something we can start as an industry, start getting involved with schools and colleges and, you know, making younger people aware that, you know, if you get caught shoplifting and you get prosecuted and you've got verbal, you know, and you've got violent abuse as a criminal record, it's going to hinder the careers you've got as a later date, you know, and I think there are things we can do that are more long term there. But in the short term, I think regular offenders, you know, security teams need to be aware of and be able to share that data so people are aware in that local area who are the known shoplifters and who should we tackle quickly. I think rising body-worn cameras is really positive and that should be embraced more often as well. But I think police response and push for prosecutions needs to be top of the list to make it an unacceptable crime to try and reduce it.
The Worker Protection Act requires employers to prevent sexual harassment in the workplace. How will security officers help to enforce this legislation and support people throughout their journeys in public and private spaces? Also, could the creation of safe spaces be part of the answer here, Kieran?
I think a lot of people forget about the consistency in security. When you talk about in the workplace, security are generally the first and last people that employees see as they go in and out of the workplace. I think that human interaction, saying good morning to people as they come in and out, as most security officers do, is really key. I've read some really good reward and recognition recently in our business of security officers that have picked up on people that haven't behaved in their normal way as they've gone into work and have gone to speak to them later in the day and check on their welfare. And out the back of it has been some mental health first aid support and things like that. And that's really key because I think security are there to make the environment and employees safe. And that interaction and giving our officers that mental health first aid awareness has meant they've engaged in conversations differently and offered support to employees of our customers. And I think out of the back of that, you'll open some doors and give people opportunity and we can give them signposting to raise concerns if they've got them. So I think that's really key. I think out and about on the transport network, this is what I mentioned earlier around the growth in that travel safe officer or safeguarding piece. I think there's an awareness that people have the right to travel around in a safe environment, and our safeguarding officers are key to that. And again, they will get that mental health first aid training, safeguarding training to understand. A lot of it is body language and behaviour detection to understand that people are acting outside the ordinary. And then to engage with them in a friendly manner and get to the bottom of what their concerns are and then report and support with that. So I think on the Worker Protection Act, I think the security staff that are employed on the transport network or in people's offices or in local areas, I think are key. I think it's one of the things that security officers are there for, is that they're a uniformed presence that gives people confidence, and gives them reassurance that it's someone in an authority position that you can go to for help and assistance. And I would hope that's what our employees do daily, is to give people that reassurance and assistance where they need it. So yeah, I think they're key to that piece.
Returning to the news, South Wales Police has been deploying additional live facial recognition cameras in Cardiff during this year's Six Nations Rugby Internationals as a further measure purpose designed to keep city centre visitors safe. The surveillance system was deployed for the first time on the 22nd of February when Wales hosted Ireland at the Principality Stadium, and will be in use again for the round 5 match with England on the 15th of March. In practice, a network of temporary cameras has been positioned across the city centre. The feeds from these cameras are transmitted to live facial recognition vans, where police officers will then be alerted to the presence of any individuals who are listed on a predetermined watch list. Officers are then deployed in response to an alert in order to confirm whether the individual who creates that alert is who the police need to speak to before taking appropriate action. Cameras are positioned at key points across Cardiff city centre, covering the main pedestrian entry points, in turn effectively creating what South Wales Police references as a zone of safety, itself a concept funded by the Home Office. For its part, the facial recognition technology itself is working in exactly the same way as traditional live deployments, with faces being compared against the aforementioned watch list of individuals who are wanted for committing crime, banned from an area, or otherwise pose a risk to the public. While the cameras are similar in appearance to traditional CCTV cameras, they don't record, and in the event of no match, the data is immediately and automatically deleted. The cameras are marked as police cameras. Assistant Chief Constable Trudy Mayrick commented, "The expansion of facial recognition cameras around the city centre really enhances our ability to keep visitors safe from harm. Our priority is to keep the public safe, and this technology helps us to achieve that aim." Mayrick continued, "We understand the concerns raised about the use of facial recognition technology, but it's important to remember that it's never resulted in a wrongful arrest. Further, there haven't been any false alerts for several years now, as the technology and our understanding has evolved. Since a legal challenge was posed to the use of the technology, there's been the development of the Biometrics and Surveillance Camera Commissioner's Code of Practice, and also the College of Policing Authorised Professional Practice, with the latter setting out the police service's obligations when it comes to the use of live facial recognition. South Wales Police has reiterated the truism that a series of trial deployments and the independent testing and evaluation of data duly confirm that this form of surveillance technology doesn't discriminate on the grounds of gender, age or race based on the responsible way in which facial recognition is now used. On that note, Mayrick observed, "The level of oversight and independent scrutiny means that we are now in a stronger position than ever before to be able to demonstrate that our use of facial recognition technology is fair, legitimate, ethical and proportionate. Indeed, if this particular trial is successful, the concept could be used at other major events and locations in South Wales." Facial recognition was previously used on an intelligence-led deployment at a concert in Cardiff after similar events in other parts of the UK had resulted in more than 220 smartphones being stolen from those attending them. In fact, 30 individuals who were thought to be part of an organised crime group specialising in stealing smartphones at music events were placed on a watch list. This proactive measure led to the identification of one suspect who was identified through facial recognition and arrested for going equipped to steal. Notably, there were no reported mobile phone thefts. Responding to South Wales Police's announcement, Madeleine Stone, Senior Advocacy Officer at privacy-focused organisation Big Brother Watch, explained, "Embedding facial recognition surveillance in a citywide CCTV network represents a shocking expansion of police surveillance and turns Cardiff into an Orwellian zone of biometric surveillance. This unprecedented use of the technology could pave the way for the mass rollout of permanent facial recognition surveillance systems right across the UK." Stone continued, "Live facial recognition technology turns us into walking barcodes and makes us a nation of suspects. This network of facial recognition cameras will make it impossible for Cardiff residents and visitors to opt out of a biometric police identity check." Further, Stone noted, "For the last 3 years now, South Wales Police has not made a single arrest due to the use of this technology at sporting events, and yet continues to waste taxpayers' money on this rights-abusing technology. No other democracy in the world spies on its population with live facial recognition in this cavalier and chilling way. South Wales Police must immediately stop this dystopian trial." The last arrest made by South Wales Police using live facial recognition technology occurred back on the 23rd of March 2022, despite multiple deployments at other rugby and football events. Registration is now open for Security Matters Live 2025, the one-day conference programme and accompanying industry exhibition run by Western Business Media and its dedicated security titles Security Matters and Professional Security Installer. Taking place on the 5th of June at the Coventry Building Society Arena, the Security Matters Live conference programme is approved and certified for continuing professional development thanks to Security Matters' special arrangement with the Security Institute. Sessions will cover key topics including business resilience, key holding and alarm response, artificial intelligence, compliance, converged security, training and the application of security within the critical national infrastructure sector. Security Matters Live also incorporates an installer-focused conference organised and run by the Security Systems and Alarms Inspection Board, in addition to a conference programme specially created by the International Foundation for Protection Officers UK branch. There's also going to be a business group meeting held by the Association of Security Consultants. On the day, delegates will be able to network with hundreds of like-minded practicing security professionals, learn from conference speakers, and chat with representatives from first-class solution providers including Advansis, COP UK, Smart Task, Suprema and TDSI. Importantly, Security Matters Live is co-located with Fire Safety Matters Live 2025, and in the evening, the Coventry Building Society Arena will also play host to the ceremony for the Fire and Security Matters Awards 2025. The headline sponsor for Security Matters Live 2025 is HID Global. Event sponsors also include Kinetics, March Networks and Seagate. Further details are available on the event website at securitymatterslive.co.uk. Our second guest on this edition is Sunil Mudholkar, Vice President of Products with a Physical Security focus at Hexagon. As a business, Hexagon assists its customers to minimise the impact of security, safety and operational incidents. Its comprehensive portfolio of video management software and enterprise incident management solutions serves thousands of customers all around the world in the manufacturing, transportation, retail, education, finance, logistics, critical infrastructure and also government sectors. Based in Boston, Massachusetts, Sunil leads a global development team of product managers working on Hexagon's physical security solutions roadmap and strategy. On this occasion, Sunil reviews the changing demand for video management systems, trends in the retail and transportation sectors, and the concept of the digital twin. Welcome to the Security Matters podcast, Sunil. Thank you very much for taking the time to join us today. It's now just over 2 years since Hexagon acquired Cognify. What does the company's security offer comprise today?
It's been a fast 2 years since this journey started, and so our physical security portfolio is pretty broad within Hexagon. We sit alongside the public safety team and their sort of on-call and connect products that they have in their portfolio, and we in the physical security group really have 3 sort of foundational pillars of our product offering. We have our video management solution. We have our PSIM platform known as Situator, and we have our Accurate Vision 3D LiDAR surveillance system, which is sort of the newest addition to the family, and we're really excited about having that there. All 3 of these products really have been were brought into the family together, and we've been working for the last 2 years or so on bringing them tighter together to try and enable some things that we think that we can do differently from others in the market. And the timing is pretty cool right now as well, because here we are at the end of February, and we'll be doing exciting marketing launch campaign around these products and what we call our DC3 physical security portfolio. We'll be announcing that a little bit later on in March, so timing of this is great.
The business boasts a particularly strong background in video management, of course. How has the demand for video management systems changed in recent years, and in what ways is Hexagon responding to market demands?
Yeah, it's a pretty interesting place to be right now. I mean, on one hand, it's a very physical security is a really exciting industry to be in right now, because one is it's growing significantly. I think not just our business, but the market as a whole is experiencing pretty significant growth. You can see that out there really, not just in the individual companies and sort of the numbers that they're posting and the amount of customers that they're gaining, but you can also see the amount of activity that's going on from an investment perspective, whether it's in venture capital money or private equity money or mergers and acquisitions. So it's an exciting space to be in right now. I think in our case, what we really see on the VMS side is we've got a lot of customers that are sort of consolidating their operations, meaning, the number of cameras and the number of buildings, the number of facilities that they are expected to sort of keep an eye on now with, almost the same size operational team, right, is growing. There's hundreds and thousands of cameras, in our case, probably a couple 100,000 cameras being added to our VMS customers over the course of every given year. And it's virtually impossible for customers to sort of keep, every eyes on a pane of glass, right, when you're growing that fast. So what we've seen is a huge growth in terms of the number of sort of analytics and integrations and smart workflows that are happening in the VMS space, primarily because you can't scale the number of people in your operations team with the amount of real estate and the amount of cameras, I think, that are being added to the system. So in order to do that, you've got to be pretty smart in enabling some video analytics and enabling some smarter workflows and integration, so that instead of trying to keep eyes on cameras, instead your sort of view into the world is changing and you're looking at things from an event perspective, right? Show me what's going on from an event and intelligence perspective, rather than expecting that I'm always going to have, somebody watching these hundreds and thousands of cameras in the system. So it's sort of changing the front door of the VMS and how people are accessing the information.
And Hexagon conducts a good deal of its work in the retail and transportation sectors. What are the major trends you're seeing in these key verticals?
Retail is interesting because I think there's two aspects of retail that are important for us and our customers. One of them, certainly comes down to the fundamental financials of the business, loss prevention, theft prevention. As the experience of the consumer has gone, somewhat in the direction of self-checkout systems, more automated checkout stands. Perhaps they have less staff covering those areas and sort of have more floating staff covering, multiple point of sale systems. As a result, being able to keep a keen eye on the behavior of what's going on at the point of sale systems, I think, is critical for making sure that you're controlling your losses, so to speak, and understanding, where the money is coming in and where the goods are going out. There's some pretty unique capabilities in this space today for being able to track video alongside transactions, and providing an additional layer of sort of business video intelligence, basically marrying up, here's what happened on the video, with marrying that data with, a transaction ID of what's on the receipt, so that you can make sure that, people aren't sort of skimming through as they do the checkout systems, and then being able to forensically go back and make sure that, hey, does what happened on this video match the transaction that occurred at the point of sale systems? That's sort of one area. Another area is obviously employee and customer safety and security. Unfortunately, we all see in, the headlines or in our social media feeds about, let's just say, people not behaving as we would like them to be as citizens in public spaces, and that includes retail. And so certainly providing our customers, and in turn their customers, with a secure experience that they feel safe, at their favorite retail location is important. If I take a look at transportation, that sector is really expanding into some more non-traditional means of physical security. And what I mean by that is we have a lot of customers, today that are using, video cameras at their trains stations, or excuse me, even on the train car themselves, or perhaps in the airport terminals, or perhaps in exterior parts of an airport, metro stations and things like that. And I think that the transportation sector is changing a little bit and offering a more, getting into a more sort of 360-degree view of their operations, and that includes not just protecting the passengers and maybe the train cars or the terminals in the airport or the exterior perimeter of the airport, but now you're also looking at things like critical infrastructure that's related to that mode of transportation. So you're extending your physical security, excuse me, to bridges and tunnels and entry points. You're extending your security to the to the fence line and perimeter of an airport or to out on the jetway. And I think that goes beyond video. That starts to enter the realm of some of the 3D LiDAR applications, I think, that are more interesting, that can extend the security perimeter beyond where just video can go today.
And could you explain what 3D LiDAR is all about for us, and also outline its most prominent security applications?
Yeah, as I was referring to in the transportation space, what we are seeing, and we've got an entirely separate family that's related to this, basically extending your perimeter, excuse me, beyond the boundaries of two-dimensional and going into a three-dimensional world. And what that means is you can now have the ability to track and monitor perimeters, excuse me, that are both not just two-dimensional, in drawing sort of a boundary box of a perimeter of what you'd like to protect, but you can also do a 3D, draw 3D perimeter, meaning also add verticality to that bounding area. And that allows you to, for example, if you take a piece of critical infrastructure, like a nuclear power plant, as an example, where, yes, being able to monitor around the fence line is interesting, but even more interesting is being able to see what's potentially going on above the cooling towers, as an example. That's an area where 3D, and in particular LiDAR and laser sensors, have the ability to do things that video can't. Take what I was mentioning a moment ago on the transportation space as well. And if you look at, for example, a tunnel, you can place LiDAR sensors on the exterior of a tunnel. And what that allows you to do is track objects as they enter and exit, excuse me, a tunnel. And you can measure the size of those objects, and you can determine whether or not, is that an animal? Is that a train car? Is that a person? Allowing you to provide an additional layer of security on that critical infrastructure around transportation.
Remaining with the subject of LiDAR, Sunil, could you describe the concept of the digital twin and how it can benefit security projects?
Yeah, so it's the digital twin concept is something that Hexagon has been working on for quite some time. We've got a lot of expertise in our geospatial teams that have been that are sort of subject matter experts in the industry on this area. And a really interesting example of digital twins. I'll just give a couple that I think are pretty interesting. If you take a look for, as an example, at a oil and gas facility, right? An oil and gas facility is, extremely important piece of critical infrastructure. It has many layers to it, right? You've got not only the plant itself, but then you've got all of the utilities infrastructure that goes along with it. You've got power, and you've got pipes, and you've got various mechanicals, and you've got the equipment that services that oil and gas utility. And so the concept of a digital twin is basically builds up layers and layers and layers of that information so that you have a full 3D representation of what a facility looks like. Another example of this is take an airport facility, very similar in concept, right? I can create a digital twin of that airport, and that digital twin may include the parking facilities, the ingress and egress, all of the terminals, all of the gates, the runways. I've got a complete sort of 3D representation of what that world looks like. And there's all sorts of scanning tools that we use to help us create and then analyze and provide information into that digital twin. So now that I've got this 3D representation of what my facility may look like, I can then add an additional layer into that, which is the security layer. So now what I can do is I can take that whole 3D digital twin of my universe, and I can put in now, here's where those video cameras should be. I can really plan what my whole physical security infrastructure can look like on top of that digital twin. Provide an example of what it looks like to take all of those utilities, all of that infrastructure, marry that information with the physical security, the cameras, the locations, the guard stations, the LiDAR sensors, and I can really get a full representation of, if I have a problem, particular area or part of the facility, do I have a camera there that I can focus on and see what's actually going on in that particular event, and marry the information to the video of what's actually happening at the same time.
Last but not least, Sunil, what does the immediate future roadmap look like for Hexagon?
I would say that there are a couple of things that we're really focused on in 2025. One of those is the ability to bring in more real-time video analytics into the system. So, I mentioned earlier that, it's virtually impossible for people to keep up with the amount of cameras, the amount of buildings, the amount of facilities that are sort of coming online from a security perspective, just in terms of putting sort of eyes on that glass, right? So what do you want to do in order to reduce the operational impact of that, right? You want to have smarter intelligence in the system that's basically alerting you to what's going on without having necessarily have somebody watching that particular camera or watching that particular, incident at a time. So what we see, especially important in 2025 is making video analytics, and in particular, the intelligence that's derived from video analytics, making that more of a intentional experience in the product. So, using the video analytics as the front door into the system, so that I can instead open up my application and I can see from a dashboard perspective, what is it that's actually going on in real time without needing to have to go to my video wall necessarily, or without having to need to go to my access control logs, necessarily. Instead, the information from these events is automatically correlated and presented to the user in a way that its value and its priority is basically instantaneously achievable in terms of the information that's provided, and allowing the operator to respond faster and with less, I would say, observations required in order for that reaction time to happen. Instead, it's sort of the system is speeding up response times as a result of correlating that information together. So we see that, as one certainly big theme for us in 2025. I would say also that the marrying together of the 2D and 3-dimensional worlds is critical for us moving ahead. Traditionally, our VMS product has been in one silo, and the 3D and LiDAR solution has been in another silo. And as we look through this year, one of the things that we will be doing is bringing those worlds together and meshing the 2-dimensional with the 3-dimensional, so that as your LiDAR systems, as an example, have the ability to detect, unauthorized, drones and other objects in the air that may be around a piece of critical infrastructure. Having that in turn talk to the VMS system, which can then control a PTZ camera to point in that direction, again, to sort of put more and more automation into the system. I think that's where marrying the 2D and the 3D will be critical for us and our success in 2025.
That brings us to the end of this edition of the Security Matters podcast. Many thanks indeed to Kieran Mackie from Amulet Security and also Sunil Mudholkar of Hexagon for their time and insight. Many thanks also to our podcast sponsor, the Security Event. The Security Event runs from the 8th to the 10th of April 2025 at the NEC in Birmingham. To register for the show, visit www.thesecurityevent.co.uk. Don't forget to visit our website at www.securitymattersmagazine.com, where you can access all of our podcasts and also read the latest news and opinion from the security business sector. You can view our dedicated features content and also sign up to receive our very popular weekly news bulletin. Please do contact us if there are any key themes or issues you would like us to explore on upcoming editions of the podcast. You can do so on X, formerly Twitter of course, by using the hashtag SecurityPod. On that note, make sure you follow us on X at WBMSecMatters and access our LinkedIn page at Security Matters Magazine and website. Please do like and share the podcast content and spread the word among your industry colleagues. You can listen to the Security Matters podcast for free on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, YouTube or Podbean. To download the Security Matters podcast, all you need to do is enter the term Security Matters into your chosen platform search box. We'll see you next time.